Welcome to Paddlecast with Betsy
and Billy. On Paddlecast, we talk to and about paddlers who are pushing the limits, paddlers who are pushing their own limits and pushing the limits of paddle sports.
For this week's news, we'll start with an update on Sebastian Szubski's Round Britain record attempt.
We'll recap the Berg River Marathon in South Africa.
We'll review the Junior and Under-23 European Sprint Championships and the APP stand-up paddleboard race in Korea.
We will have a look at K4 racing in Sanabria and Valladolid in Spain, and the Wild Water Racing Under-23 World Championships in Solcan.
And preview the Yukon 1000.
And we will finish with the warm down.
If you've been listening to Paddlecast already, you know that we typically try to do these for you as full videos with our faces. Whether that is enjoyable or not, we're not sure. But we are going to try this episode as audio only, or as audio first, with just a few visuals, and see how that goes. So let us know what you think. So as of this week, Sebastian has completed more than 2,000 kilometers of his circumnavigation of Britain. He is right around the 2/3 point, but he has had some really challenging days recently. Billy, what did you think about his crossing of Lyme Bay?
Yeah, his Lyme Bay crossing was pretty massive. And we've talked about how important these big crossings are for Sebastian, with the main tactic being of cutting corners more than Dougal did. He also had a big, hard stop on the weather. The weather forecast was closing in, and Sebastian had to get across Lyme Bay. He was in Portland for most of the day and then went for a night crossing. And he didn't just sort of cross Lyme Bay and go to Brixham. He went almost right to start point. So it really was as big a crossing as you could have done. And he ended up doing about 100 kilometers, didn't he, that day?
Yeah, it was massive. It was a really big crossing, and the weather conditions were not great. They definitely could have been worse.
Well, I didn't think the forecast was bad, but it turns out the forecast wasn't 100% correct.
Yeah, it sounded like he had some points that were okay and other points that were particularly difficult.
Yeah. So I looked at this and I thought he'd do about a 12-hour crossing. I sort of assumed he'd go somewhere near Brixham based off what I would probably be looking at. And yeah, looked at the forecast. It didn't look too bad. You know, not perfect, but perfectly acceptable. And yeah, he ended up doing over 100 kilometers and spending 16 hours in the boat that night and the next morning. I woke up in the Netherlands an hour ahead and checked my phone immediately to see where he was. And he had been doing very slow speeds, and then the tracker had stopped working. So immediately I messaged Mike Lambert, who's doing a lot of work with Sebastian. He's doing all his planning. And I don't know if, I then went for a run, but then when I returned, Mike was like, yeah, I am worried. And then I had messages from Ukraine with Dougal being like, his tracker's not working. I had messages from Ireland out there. And so people all over Europe were sort of having a look at this tracker not working and going, something's not quite right. And actually, yeah, as you heard from Sebastian, it wasn't going right.
Yeah, I think we were all in a little bit of minor panic at that point. But yeah, it was a scary, scary moment. And I think all of us probably followed up with Sebastian to try and figure out what happened. And we'll put up a picture here of the map so you can kind of see where it came through in the end. I think we ended up learning later that he was out of range on the GPS at this point. And then when it kind of updated, he had kind of gone off course. So I asked Sebastian, what was going on here? And to set the stage, in the 5 days before the crossing, 3 of those 5 days, Sebastian did more than 100 kilometers of paddling, which is a lot in any one day.
It's big.
Yeah, and doing 3 of those days in the 5 days leading up to the crossing, that's a huge amount of work. Those days are at least 13 hours of paddling for him. And It's not entirely unusual for Sebastian to have a 100-kilometer plus day in his circumnavigation so far. Before Lyme Bay, he had already done 10, which is a lot more than either Mike Lambert or Dougal did. So Mike did 4 last year, and when Dougal set the record the previous year, he only did 3. Now, they had days in the 90-kilometer range too. Sebastian has also had days in the 90-kilometer range. But, you know, those 100-kilometer plus days are massive.
Yeah.
And it's just really hard on the body. So we knew, like, going into this, he was already going to be kind of struggling to get enough calories, to get enough rest and sleep, especially just like with that volume that he's putting in, literally having time to sleep and rest and eat and digest, you know. And then he's heading out for another 100-kilometer plus day, open ocean crossing. So he heads off around 9:30 p.m., maybe a little bit just after sunset, still has some light. And, you know, as you said, Billy, he didn't have much of a choice in making this crossing.
No.
Bad weather coming in. He knew he had to get across. So he said that as he was going out, the swell was getting bigger, the wind was picking up, and it was getting choppier because of that bad weather coming in. So I'm going to share exactly what he told us. So he said, after paddling 3 hours with the tide, the moon went down and it was totally dark. Now I have to paddle against the tide. And after a while, my eyes couldn't manage. Everything was like I was drunk. I ended up sleeping paddling for a while, first time in my life. When I woke up, I realized that I was going the wrong direction, so I corrected. I had no point of orientation, so I chose one of the stars. The waves and wind were coming all the time from the side. After about an hour, I realized that I'm paddling practically in the same place. When I looked at the watch, I was doing 30 minutes per kilometer.
Yeah, that's not very fast.
That is brutal. And knowing that that's going to be like 100-kilometer crossing, to look down at your watch and see 30 minutes a kilometer.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal. So he said, finally, the light came around 3:30 and then everything got better for a while. But his energy was really low for a long time. But then some dolphins came by and he got to paddle with a lot of dolphins. They were really close to him. He said, I came back to life. And then in the last 20 kilometers, a really heavy, strong wind was picking up that slowed him down again. But he was feeling better by this point. After he completed the crossing, I think the next day, he said he had slept like 10 hours.
Yeah.
I think for the first time in the circ, which is much needed, I'm sure. What a story.
Yeah, that's pretty nails, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised he fell asleep while he was paddling. I'm just glad he stayed upright.
Yeah. Although if he'd have fallen in, he'd have woken up pretty sharpish. That might have woken him up better than keep nodding off.
Yeah, I did wonder about that.
Yeah.
It's like his balance is so good that he can sleep while paddling.
I'm curious, actually, just when you sort of were saying about that, I wonder. I don't reckon Joe Leach and John Willesee, who are the last people I am aware of going around Britain, or certainly the next 2 fastest times. I don't reckon they did a single 100-kilometer day. They may have done, and I apologize if they did. I don't think they did, and I don't reckon they did much night paddling either. Certainly not all-nighters.
Yeah.
I do remember reading on John Willesee's blog about the circumnavigation. I think he said from the moment he decides to wake up and go paddling, it takes 2 hours to pack his stuff away, pack everything in the boat and go down and be paddling. So from like waking up to paddling is 2 hours.
Wow.
And I don't know how long it takes to set up camp, but it's Sebastian's able to just turn that time into paddling time.
Yeah.
Which is such an advantage. But the skis have moved things on, being able to cover this big distance in these seas with rudders.
Yeah.
And it's been moved on now with having to push so hard. You don't get an easy day after a big day.
Yeah, it is really tough. In the night paddling tactic, it is an interesting one. He's certainly done a lot more night paddling than Dougal or Mike did.
Yeah. Dougal hardly did any night paddling.
Yeah, his days were really consistent.
Yeah. Dougal just got up and paddled.
Yeah, Dougal did not take any rest days.
No.
He had that one day, I think, before you did the Irish Sea crossing with him, which was 26 kilometers.
And that was literally, he was ready to go, and he would have gone. He paddled around the bitches. He would have crossed, but Matt Rowlands and I were, flapping around, worrying about the tide. We wanted everything to be perfect, and in the end, we chose a different option we could have gone any moment. We should have just gone, and he would have then have done that 25 kilometers and then the Irish crossing. But he did say he felt a lot better after that 25-kilometer day.
Yeah. So I mean, the rest days do make a difference, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting how Sebastian he really just sleeps when he can and paddles as much as he can within those weather windows, and sometimes the tide windows, not always.
Yeah, so he did the crossing, and then he went straight to bed, did he, Betsy? Called it a day?
Well, as I'm sure our listeners are kind of getting a sense of who Sebastian is at this point, so you won't be entirely surprised by this. He, I think, got just a few hours of rest, and then he was back out again.
Yeah.
And because he landed on there's sort of a point there, right, that comes out on the map, and he landed on the logical side to land of that point, coming across the bay, which would be the east side. And because it is kind of sticky outy at that point, it was pretty susceptible to the incoming weather, which meant he had a pretty narrow window to then get around to the other side of that point before the bad weather blew in. And so he just kind of had to go out and do it. And he did another
22 kilometers. Yeah. So in slightly more sort of sea kayaking nautical terms, the sticky out bit is start point, and it's a famous location. You've got the whole of Lyme Bay and the tide, trying to get round, and a big tide race forms at start point. Dougal actually said it was the worst part of the trip for him. He said it was really unpleasant. I haven't personally been round it in a kayak. I've been round it sailing, but there isn't much of an inside passage from what I'm aware of. And, it's rough, and especially in a westerly wind against tide. And that was what Sebastian was facing. I think he still had it. He managed to go round right on the tide. We were messaging, weren't we? And he went round. He wouldn't be much later from what I saw on the tidal stream atlas, but he got round really well. And he wouldn't have got round the next day. It was a great call by Mike to send him out again. He got round, and he got into sort of Salcombe Harbour, didn't he? Or did he go a little bit further? He went a little bit further around the corner than Salcombe.
Yeah. He went basically all the way around to the other side. And so he sort of passed Salcombe Harbour. And it still took, even though it was only the 22 kilometers, it still took him over 3 hours. Yeah,
he was a man in pain.
Yeah, seriously. I think it was after that he got the 10 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. And he had a well-deserved pint the next day as well.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. And it's crazy because that was actually, so if you look at how many hours he was in the boat, because as we said, it was over 16 hours on the crossing. So in like a 24 to 25 hour time span from the night that he started the crossing to when he finally got round to the other side of start point, it was 19 and a half hours out of about 24 or 25 that he was in the boat on the water paddling or sleep paddling, as it were.
Yeah, it's impressive, isn't it? And this is like, for anyone listening, he's been doing this now for, 27 days. And, it's like finishing DW or finishing the Yukon, the Berg, finishing all of those.
Texas Water
and carrying on.
Yep.
And just going the next day and going the next day. It's a slightly lower intensity. He's still going. It doesn't matter if you're sore. It doesn't matter if you've got the open wounds. And, his hands are actually healed up really well, haven't they?
I saw that. They did look rough maybe a week or two ago, but it looks like they've kind of calloused over, thankfully.
So, he's now round Land's End. And actually, I think he rounded Land's End middle of the day today. And I would say at the point of rounding Land's End, there's absolutely nothing between Dougal and Sebastian's times. They couldn't be more neck
Yep.
and neck, really.
It's so tight. And because we're looking at this literally every day. And it was like he did the Lyme Bay crossing. He's a little bit ahead. He has a forced rest day because of the weather. He's a little bit behind or even. Then he manages to kind of put some distance in anyway, despite the bad weather. We were looking at it on Monday. We were like, he has to go around Land's End on Tuesday to stay on track. Now he has done that as of Tuesday.
Yeah.
It is just literally neck and neck. And I mean, from here on out, looking like he's in the home stretch.
I think I'm quite confident he'll do it now. I've sort of changed my opinion on that in the last week. I've really felt that he got through the last week unscathed. He did have a tough time of Cornwall. You know, he did have to scrape round Plymouth and Foy and all of those those areas. But he will finish today further along than Dougal finished his equivalent day, and it looks like he's got brilliant conditions for a Bristol Channel crossing. He's then got the choice of the Welsh or Irish coasts. I imagine he'll do an Irish sea crossing. He's got, you know, brilliant forecasts for that. What did I say? He will be doing the Bristol Channel crossing on probably Thursday, and then probably an Irish Sea crossing on Friday. So I think he's going to take a couple of days off his record.
Yeah, it could end up being significant.
Yeah.
Which is just massive. I mean, into having seen how close it's been this whole time.
Yeah.
Like if he can knock a significant chunk of time off of Dougal's record, which also hopefully everyone who's been following along has a sense now of just how impressive Dougal's record really is.
Yeah, when you consider that he was having to manage blood sugars every day, he was having to set up camp, he was, going off and finding his own water at times, going off shopping at times, all of that.
Yeah.
It is very impressive.
It's really impressive. Well, and if anyone isn't already following Sebastian on social media and on his GPS tracker, definitely take a look. You are missing out on the thrill of following him during the day, every day. And you can even on the website on his GPS tracker website, you can even send him a message to encourage him. I sent him one of those when he was doing the Lyme Bay crossing. And I know he appreciates that.
Does it come up on his screen while he's going along?
Yeah, it comes up on his watch.
Oh, really?
It's pretty cool. Well, let's move on to the Berg River Marathon in South Africa.
Yeah, massive bucket list race here. I really would have loved to have done it at some point, and I will try and look to do it in the future. It's over 4 stages. It's downriver. There's loads of nice drops, nice little rapids. It's a really complicated river, and you've really got to get it right. There's loads of different paths you can take down this river, and you need to know it or be in a group to get down cleanly. There was really close racing this year, full of legends. Janny Malherbe completed his 52nd Berg. He's 85, I believe. 52 Bergs. That is a serious number.
Oh my God. Life goals.
Life goals. And I really hope he got like a tie. Discounted entry to next year's race.
Surely after 52, you get free entry, right?
No, I would imagine it's like 55 or something like that on the big like stamp it. Maybe he's lost his promo code book. The men's race was won by Hank McGregor, which isn't a really real surprise. But that is his 14th Berg win.
Oh.
You know, that's a decent number of wins, really, isn't it? He won all 4 stages, and he finished with a 10-minute lead. Second and third were very tight. There was like about 90 seconds in it. Second place went to 53-year-old Robbie Hervold. He was only 24 seconds ahead of third place. So third place went to Siseko Untundini. There was rumoured to be a strong effort by him and Hank as Eurosteel teammates to move Siseko into second, but Robbie held off. Siseko did manage second on the final stage. Tom Lovemore was a potential podium contender and, well, a potential winner. He won last year, but he was fifth place after day two and was ill and had to withdraw from a race on day three. The women's race was really tight. There was some real interesting goings on there. Tell us about that.
Oh my gosh, it really was. This was, and we've got to give a shout out to the race itself. So Berg River Canoe Marathon, because they posted these really fantastic updates daily and even during the day about each of the races. So huge shout out. Like, it's really hard to follow and track these multi-day stage ultra races, and they did a great job with it. So the women's race, we had some really fast women here, including both Nix Birkett and Jenna Nisbett. We were expecting to have Pips McGregor in there too. And I think, Billy, you had mentioned her in the preview as well. Unfortunately, she ended up having to pull out at the last minute. So we did not get Pips McGregor there. Would have been great to have her in the mix too. And then we also had a couple of other women with really impressive records of Berg wins and podiums. But the closest action was between Nix Birkett and Jenna Nisbett. So in the stages, Nix Birkett won 3 of the 4 stages. So the first day, the third day, and the fourth day. It's a 4-day stage race. But she didn't win by that much. They were really close wins, like seconds to maybe like a minute sort of range. And on day 2, Jenna Nisbett finished 8 minutes ahead of Nix Birkett, which was a huge advantage. And it was only a lucky mistake that led her to take such a big lead, according to what the race and Jenna reported. So Jenna said, on day 2, we started in a nice group of 5, but at the first rapid, which was about 5 kilometers into the race, I spun out and someone went over me. I thought it was the end of the race when I lost contact with Nikki and the other part of the group. Thankfully, I was with a guy named John DeVilliers who knows the river very well, and it actually worked out in our favor that we both lost contact with the group because he had some unbelievable knowledge of the river and took us down some channels, which definitely paid off. I never saw Nix again until the end. I think she must have got a bit lost or stuck in a tree or something, and I passed her without seeing her. I was happy to have a clean day and to be able to follow John down some good lines and conserve energy as much as possible because tomorrow is a big day. This was what she had said at the end of day 2 before she officially ended up with the win. She said, even though I have a nice lead over Nix, that can disappear very quickly over 76 kilometers tomorrow. So that was wild. She literally, like, first 5 kilometers of the race, goes in on a rapid, loses track of the group, and then somehow finishes 8 minutes ahead of Nix.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, really, isn't it?
It's just incredible because it's like, if that hadn't happened, at least looking at days 1, 3, and 4, it probably would have been Nix with the win by a really small margin.
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes to show, you've talked about just how complex the river is and how much sort of navigation plays a role in it. I mean, an 8-minute difference.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? Yeah. And on a flowing river, it's a decent gap.
Yeah. So great racing by Jenna and Nix.
Yeah, and it was really easy to follow, wasn't it, on Instagram with and they did a really great job with limited mobile network coverage. Yeah, really cool. At the same time, we had the junior and under 23 European Sprint Championships.
Yes. So those were live streamed from the European Canoe Association, and they were held in Romania. But the biggest winner was Hungary.
Oh, what a surprise.
Yeah. Still some really impressive, like, kind of levels of domination from Hungary. They won 34 medals, which was 20% of all medals that were up for grabs.
Nice.
By my calculation. So yeah, pretty impressive for Hungary. And Hungary ended up winning one of the races that I was most excited to watch. And that was the under 23 women's K1 500 meters. Last year, Christina Armstrong from Team GB took gold, but this year. I think her competition was tougher. I know Esther Rindesi from Hungary was not there last year, and we talked about Lucrezia Zeroni from Italy has gotten a lot faster since last year. And Christina ended up just off the podium in fourth place. And Esther Rindesi from Hungary took the win in 1 minute 51 seconds, 0.6. And then she was followed by Bianca Sidova of Slovakia in second, and then Lucrezia Zeroni of Italy in third. So yeah, Rindesi has had some really impressive results on the senior stage. Zeroni has as well. We've talked about her. She finished fourth in this event at the Senior Europeans a couple of weeks ago. Now she's finished in third. So if you just think about kind of like calibrating fourth in the Senior Europeans, third in the junior, or not junior, but the under 23 Europeans, like that's the kind of level and caliber that we are talking about here.
Yeah, it's hot competition, isn't it?
Yeah, really fierce competition, even in the younger age groups, you know, strong enough to be just barely off the podium in the senior races.
Yeah.
So yeah, really impressive. So keep your eye on Zeroni and Rindesi as well. Rindesi finished 8th in the K1 500 at the Poznan World Cup, and she was third in the K1 1000 at the Hungary World Cup behind Amy Fisher and Zoka Chikos, and ahead of Melina Anderson only by a tenth of a second. So again, like those are literally the top senior women, and these under 23 women are right up there in the mix with them. So yeah, just unbelievably fierce competition.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It really is. It makes me wonder, you know, Amy Fisher talks a lot about her goal of hitting 145. I think Amy Fisher of New Zealand has the world record already, but she really wants to hit that 145 number. And with the younger women coming up already competing so fiercely against the senior women, it maybe gives a little bit more evidence that 145 number is going to be hit for the K1 Women's 500 sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
We'll see. But Billy, you were following some of the junior and under 23 boys from Team GB. How did their races go?
Yeah, we had some friends of the channel racing. We had Alex Morgan and Will Short, who we've raved about nonstop. I don't think there's been many episodes where they haven't been mentioned. They didn't medal, but they had some impressive results. Really good to be right up the pointy end of the racing at this level. And we also had a K4, or we had Ollie Mazur and Freddie Hurd out there. Their best result was in the K4. They are still only 15, 16-ish, and so they've got a few years left at this level. And they were in a K4 with Tom Hatton and Samuel Dixon. They were fifth, but they were, you know, the boats bronze to fifth were just 0.3 of a second apart. So the podium spot was tantalizingly close. I reached out to Freddie and Ollie to tell us a bit about their race, and we'll play that clip now.
Romania was a pretty nice course, a bit weedy, but very hot out there.
Yeah, so for K4 semi, we had pretty strong tailwind. We actually performed better than we were expecting to do in the K4. That was a surprise. Definitely motivated us to try harder, train harder. You know, it keeps us going.
Yeah, very happy with our K4 result. We're just 0.3 seconds off a medal and come fifth. So very happy with that.
That's great to hear how happy they were with their results and just how motivated they're feeling coming out of the event. I think for paddlers who are younger and earlier in their careers, just getting the chance to race at these big international events and have such a positive experience can make all the difference in really putting the fire in their bellies to go home and train harder.
Yeah, they're going to have a great little career out there, certainly at junior level. A couple more years at it, they can pick and choose what sort of racing they want to do and have some real fun with it.
Yeah, it's been great to see that they are also out in, the surf skis and doing some of the marathon racing still and, mixing that up with the sprint racing and still getting good results in the sprints.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw them at the Liffey this year.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I know we don't have time to talk about all the results, but did you have any favorite races you watched?
Yeah, so I was also really impressed by some of the Italian canoeists. In our preview episode, I thought that Irina Fedorov from Ukraine might podium in the under 23 women's C1 200-meter race, but she just missed out with a fourth place. And it was the Italian Olimpia della Giustina who won that race. She won in 46.8 seconds, which is a pretty quick time, especially for, that under 23 age category.
Yeah.
Olimpia Justina also won the C1 500 meters and then took bronze in the C4 under 23 mixed race, which was great to watch. We talked about the C4 mixed racing at the Senior Europeans, and it was really nice to see the event on show again for the junior and under 23 age categories as a mixed race. It means that you don't add as many races to the program, right? Which is typically a limitation. And so it's a way to kind of keep C4 racing. And especially because with junior and U23, you're already managing essentially double the number of events that you would at a regular senior event, because we have 2 age categories for everything. And so I just think it's really sensible to have the mixed category. I think it's really fun to watch. C4 is really cool. It's a unique craft, and you can really see a lot with it. You can see different strategies, different crew makeups. It was the Hungarians, no surprise, who ended up winning the under 23 race here. And they had a woman stroking and a woman steering. And then the 2 men were in the middle, which I thought, especially coming from a lot of outrigger canoeing, is often how you might structure a sort of mixed outrigger canoe or any outrigger canoe, where you sort of put the engine room in the middle.
Yeah.
So you put your, biggest and strongest paddlers in the center of the canoe. And especially for the steerer, because your steerer is already going to be more focused on steering, they won't be able to put 100% of their power into going forward. So if you have someone who's really experienced and technically good steerer, who might be a little bit smaller and less powerful than, say, the paddlers in your engine room, you can just, it's really, well thought out to make the best use of that person by putting them into steering. You're not losing as much power by having that person in the steering position. So I thought that was a pretty clever approach. But the different boats are all taking different approaches. There's different experience levels and strengths between each of the different paddlers. So yeah, really, really fun.
Do you think that there's an element of who puts their hands up for the mixed C4 and who's available?
I don't know. That would be an interesting question as to how they are making up those boats. I know at the Senior Europeans, I think the Spanish crew had the 2 women in the winning boat there were both paddling on the same side.
Yeah.
In total, 3 of the 4 paddlers were on the same side, and then 1 paddler on the opposite side.
Yeah, that's pretty funky.
Yeah. But it worked for them. And when I see that, usually that suggests to me that they did their trials probably purely based on speed.
Yeah.
And whoever the next fastest, lefty or righty, like opposite side paddler was a fair bit slower than, the 2 same-sided paddlers who made the crew. That would typically be my guess. So, and I mean, it's a medal race.
Yeah, I can't believe we haven't got a GB boat doing it.
That would be really nice to see. Yeah, I mean, these were not full finals, and they were direct to final. It'd be great to at least see full finals, because the caliber of the boats that was there was high. And I think it also does encourage the countries that maybe don't have such strong canoeing programs to put a little bit of effort into it for a stronger boat.
Yeah, I'll go back and check it out. You sent me a pretty cool clip from the APP Korea Sup Race. Did Shrimpy go on and win?
In a complete shock. Sorry, not a shock at all. Shrimpy won the APP race in Seoul, South Korea. APP stands for Association of Professional Paddlers. They kind of go all over the world too. I think the one in India is quite big. But this one was on the Han River in Seoul, and they had sprints, and then they also had this sort of like combination distance and technical race. Technical races vary in length, but this one was around 9K. And I believe I saw in the reporting that there was something like 30 different buoy turns.
Wow.
A lot of turns, which sounded interesting. So yeah, Shuri Iraqi Shrimpy dominated the men's race. He has done this at almost every race he has raced this year. And in an interview with Total Sup after the event, he said it was a bit challenging to manage the flow of the river technically, which I thought was pretty cool because a lot of the sup races that we talk about are either on lakes or on the sea.
Yeah.
So we don't often see a race like this where there's a whole bunch of buoy turns and it's on a river with flow. He did have some fairly high-level competition in Nikos Malakakis and Tassos Tsouras of Greece, as well as Avon Descent Ruiz of Spain. But, in the interview, Shrimpy did suggest that he did not have to use all of his energy to win those races. Essentially all of his wins this year, I think, have been pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
And he said he is saving a little bit of energy for the ISA qualifying race this upcoming weekend in Japan. This is Shrimpy we're talking about. I'm not sure he really needs to save that much energy to qualify for ISA Worlds when he's currently pretty well established, the fastest sup racer in the world right now. Yeah, I'm not too worried about him.
No, me neither.
But, it's good. It's good that even when he's ahead by such a margin, he still takes it seriously. And on the women's podium, it was the same podium in both the sprint and long distance races, both won by Otono Hirata from Japan. Second was Lim Sujong of Korea, and third was Rinka Mizutani of Japan. Mizutani just finished in second place behind Marie Carmen Rivera at the O2Y the previous weekend. So, pretty exciting results for her back-to-back weekends.
Yeah, it's cool.
What about the long-distance K4 racing in Spain? You've also been to this race before?
Oh, yeah, I've been twice. And yeah, really, it's really cool. There's 2 5K races and all in K4s. One is in a town in Spain, and the other is on a big lake, and it's stunning. And it's just very, very cool, tight racing. Local clubs race next to international crews. There's always some exceptionally strong crews. So this year, we actually sent quite a strong team. And the men's team consisted of Joe Peterson, James Howe, Arthur Morley, and Matt Collins. And they ended up taking third in the first race in Valladolid and medaling, which I don't think GB have medalled in these sort of races for quite a while. They have in the past, but not for quite a while. So the senior women's K4 of Neris Hall, Sienna Payne, Matilda Enoch, and Molly Ball took fifth. So quite impressive racing from them as well. I reached out to Joe Peterson to tell us a bit about the racing, so we'll listen to him here.
Hey, Billy. Yes, the K4 Sanabria, great racing again. The men, we got a third place on the Saturday in Valladolid, and then a fourth on the Sunday in Sanabria, and the girls got 2 fifth places. For the men, the Saturday race in Sanabria on the river was quite technical, quite exciting. 3 very tight turns. We ended up mixing it in the front group with the Hungarians, the Czechs, and the Portuguese. So the Hungarian boat stroked by Adrian Boros, and the Portuguese boat had last year's junior world champion K2 pairing in it. And in the end, we came in on the side watch of the Hungarians in third, nearly pipping the Czechs a second. But yeah, a good third place. And then on the Sunday on the lake, it was a lot wider, so overall speed was a lot more important, and we ended up out on the 5th wash for the first lap. Had a couple of pops at the Portuguese on the second lap and didn't quite manage to make it round them, but managed to take the Danes out of the group and put ourselves in place. And then we're on the outside around the final turn. So came in fourth into the sprint finish, with the Hungarians taking the win, the Czech second and Portuguese third. So overall good racing from us. I think the women had two good races. They were in the fight with the Germans and the Portuguese for third on the Saturday, and then fifth on the Sunday. They were happy with their racing. As always, a great event. The lake in Sanabria is gorgeous, and the Spanish turn up in amazing numbers. They had about 40 to 50 K4s starting on one start line for a local race. So yeah, cheers.
That was really cool. It sounds like there was some pretty tight action, and it's just not that often that you see K4s getting to race marathon. I would love to watch that live.
Yeah, in the racing in Valladolid is actually on a fairly narrow river, and the turns are seriously tight to sling, a group of K4s around. The next day on the lake is a big, and you race around an island, and there's plenty of space. But the Valladolid course is really tight.
That's awesome. And some pretty big names there too.
Yeah, Adrian Boros stroked the Hungarian boat this year. The last year that I went, John O'Grady and I snuck out for beers actually after the team meal, and we bumped into the Danish crew out there, and I can't remember everyone in it, but there was certainly Mads Pedersen and Søren Moretti were out having a beer, who's just announced that his partner is pregnant. Actually, I saw on Instagram the other day, Søren Moretti, so congratulations to him.
Very exciting. And we did see that Joseph Dostal and Anna Polidova just had their baby as well.
Ah, yeah, we did. So congratulations to them.
We also had the Wildwater Under-23 World Championships last weekend in Slovenia. I know you're watching Carrie Christie to see how she would go after she was ill during the Europeans a few weeks ago. So how did that play out?
Yeah, completely back to form. I mean, this was a great regatta for the British team. There were medals galore. It was great to watch. And I'm not going to tell you too much because we are hopefully going to talk to Kerry and she can tell us all about it. But it was a tamer course for the under-23s and the juniors. There was a fairly technical sprint course, and then the classic course, I think, included that sprint course, and then ended with a very tame final few kilometers, which it was brutal to, they were really having to pull hard. It probably suited the British paddlers more akin to what they're used to training on. So yeah, medals galore all over the show. It was really, really good to see. And they're out in Bosnia now training for the next competition.
It sounds like that was some really good racing.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, really good.
Wow, we've also got the Yukon 1000 coming up soon. So that starts on Thursday this week. We spoke last week about the Yukon River Quest and heard from one of the overall winners on Team Green Machine. So go have a listen to that if you haven't already. The Yukon 1000 is more than double the length of that full race. So it's 1,000 miles of Canadian wilderness. It actually finishes in Alaska. I think when the racers cross the border, it's so remote, they have to go use this sort of like landline outpost thing to call border control and notify them of the crossing.
Oh, wow.
It is some of the most remote wilderness in the world, and there's potential dangers from bears, wildfires, the river itself. It's really intense. It's almost more of an adventure race than an actual paddling race, but you do still sometimes get pretty quick paddlers there. So it can be a bit of a mix.
Yeah, I looked at this. You have to apply to enter, and you have to prove that you're capable of sort of, endurance sports, looking after yourself, first aid, and actually like the ability to kayak is way further down than you expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you say, "Hey, I'm an amazing kayaker," they don't care. You need to be able to kayak, but you also need to be able to do a lot of other stuff as well.
Yeah, they're more concerned with like, do you have certain wilderness first aid certifications and how to handle bears?
Exactly. So there is one team there that have an interesting approach to bears. Is this the tactic of the team with Jake Quickenden in, the MMA fighter? Is he the anti-bear team member?
I don't know how they filled that in on their application. They were like, how do you handle bears? Well, we have a pro MMA fighter. But yeah, there's a real variety of teams entered. So Jake Quickenden, the MMA fighter, he has 1 million followers on Instagram. So he's got a pretty big fan base. There are New Zealanders, there's Brits, there's siblings, there's a surfer, a rower, some high rocks athletes, a mountaineer, like a real variety. There are some who I think have a bit more paddling experience, or are sort of like paddling as one of the disciplines they do more often. And most of them are new to the Yukon 1000. A lot of them don't have much paddling racing experience. They all have been training for this. Of course, I think if they hadn't been, they would not have been approved to race, because that is such an intensive process. Everyone this year is in kayaks and canoes. There's no stand-up paddleboard teams. There were last year. So last year, the team of Craig Sawyer and Scott Innes from the UK completed the race on SUPs, and Craig made a documentary about it, which we'll link in the show notes. Well worth a watch. But no SUPs this year. And one of the potential favorites, maybe, or at least a team who's going to be really interesting to follow, is team number 1, 4 horsemen, David and Chad. So David is an American para-canoeist who is aiming to be the first para-athlete to complete the Yukon 1000. He does have some para-canoe racing experience in K1. So yeah, that'll be pretty cool to see if he and his brother Chad can earn that official title and finish the race and see how they go.
That'd be very cool. Yeah. No, it's a really cool race. It's definitely sort of on my bucket list. The Facebook page is worth a follow because you do get some updates on what's happening. There's a lot of dot watching, but then they do try and get some sort of people out on cameras to some of the more accessible parts, like Five Finger Rapid, pretty big water. Good to see crews go through there.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. I can't remember the name of the section that's just a complete maze, and you've got to pick a line through this river. And hopefully you can put a picture up of this, but you just have to try and navigate, and you've got no idea where the channel is. And actually you have to map it out. You have to show race registration that you've got maps. But there aren't maps of the second half of the course, so you have to sort of go on Google Earth and print them out. But the river is likely changed since the year before, and even last year, where people were following the trackers suggesting people had portaged, and actually no, the river had changed. Huge meanders had been cut off. People could take a different route. So it's really cool. It is the wilderness.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's just amazing. As you say, the river changes every year. And so even the best map from maybe what worked for another crew the previous year might just not work for you. Huge part of the challenge. Well, let's move on to our warm down. Last couple of minutes. I want to start this with Sebastian Brendel's retirement. So Sebastian Brendel announced his retirement on, I think it was on Saturday. He announced it on Instagram. He is a huge legend of the sport. He's been to 4 Olympics in high kneel C1. He won the gold medal in the C1 1,000 meter race in London in 2012 and again in Rio in 2016. When he won the gold in Rio, he was the first paddler in 64 years to successly defend that title from one Olympics to the next. Yeah, really impressive. And he's got another, 20 World Cup and World Champion titles, something like that. I mean, it is really, his career is, I think he said it's about 25 years paddling career, and just a huge figure in canoeing. My favorite story about him is that Ezequias Queiroz from Brazil, who is a legend in his own right with multiple Olympic medals, he named his son after Sebastian Brendel. And it's just really cool to see such competitive rivals forming such a cool friendship. Yeah, well worth a look at Sebastian's retirement post and Isakias's kind of tribute post on that, and then just tributes pouring in from all over. Akait Sayas, the
I saw that. Yeah,
head coach of Team GB, also specifically, suggested that people go back and watch Brendel's London 2012 Olympic race, which I did go back and watch. And gosh, it's a great race. So
yeah, cool. Well, I might go and have a look at that.
What's on your warm down list, Billy?
Well, I've joined a new Facebook group called the Avon Descent Water Level Group, and the Avon Descent in Australia. It's a big famous descent race. There's been some major names winning the race in the past, including three-time winner and the record holder, the current Australian national champion, Josh Kippen. I have been looking at this group because there is no water in the river at all, but it has just started raining with some storms, and there is now a trickle. So it's quite an interesting watch. They're really worried the race is going to struggle this year, I think, regardless. The race has actually been struggling for entries in the last few years, and it's sort of a similar theme worldwide, isn't it? These big major races are struggling. Yeah, hopefully that race is happening in the next couple of weeks, and so it'd be interesting to see what they manage to get done. I don't think there's going to be big weird drops. I think there might be quite a few portages.
Yeah.
But hopefully the race bounces back in the next few years.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a really cool one, so I hope so. Until next week, thanks for tuning in, and see you on the water.
See you on the water, everyone. So this is the race, but someone caught a picture of me completely out of time with the rest of the crew, and then that picture was used as the poster for the following year's competition.
Brutal.
Yeah, proud moment.